So we're going to be chatting about business models. Maybe if I can share, firstly, business models. Ultimately, when I think about business models, right, it's really going to the fundamentals of a business, right? Because if your business has strong fundamentals, then everything else can fall into place. But you need the strong fundamentals to begin with, right? Um,
What do you mean by strong fundamentals?
yeah, so I think a business model is really about how the business works, right? Meaning what's the how the business operates, how it generates revenues, how it generates its costs. So if you ask me even about fundamentally what can be narrowed down in a business model, it's all about revenues and cost, right? Because that's what a business is. A business needs money coming in, and a business needs to spend that money to continue operating, right? And the model is how do you get the revenues coming in and how do you spend the money going out in a unique way where you're getting revenues from unique sources and your cost is in a unique metric as well. Give you a simple example, right? So Facebook gets its sources of revenues from users, but they're not actually paying Facebook. The user comes in free, but the revenue comes from the advertisements, right? So that way it's easy for them to scale because they can sell to customers, hey, come to me for free, but revenue comes from another source, and cost then goes out as operating the business. So that's a unique innovation that Facebook first created, right? Where your customer that's giving you value doesn't actually pay you directly. Very unique right there. And you can see what's so appealing about it, right? What's the business model, will you say, of Hacker Collective, or how can we innovate, you know? Or startups in
question I
general,
want
let's
to
just
ask
say,
you,
right?
emphasize on the word unique.
Yeah.
This business models have to be unique.
They have to be, because ultimately, if you want to compete in a world, whether you're selling chicken rice or selling ice cream, okay, or you're selling tech courses or you're selling turbo engines for aeroplanes, if you don't innovate on the business model, then you can find innovate the product, right? It's good, innovate the product, but there are many businesses that innovate purely on the business model and they do very well because it's not so easy to innovate on the product as well, right? So business model is not saying that it's easy, but it's another way to innovate as well. I give you an example now. Okay, you're selling a course. What's a unique way to innovate on something, right? Ultimately, right now I've seen the word free. The free model has come out a lot. You give something free to your customers, but you get revenue from somewhere else. That's a very interesting business model right there. So there's a book called Business Model Generation, right? Which tells you ultimately, what is it again? Who are some of your customers? What are their pain points? How you getting revenue? They're all separated out, right? Um, is there a nice way to think about business models?
I would say business models, every business requires a business model, right?
Mm.
So since we're talking about making things unique, I guess unique just means putting yourself in a blue ocean where there's not many people competing in your field, niching down into specific industries. Because I don't know how unique you can get. There's always B2B, B2B, B2C, direct to consumer. I mean, how much more? It's always this 5, 6, 7 segments, right?
No, I mean there's always more if you try and think more about it, right? I think
No, but
yeah.
when you say business models, actually let's be clear. What do you mean by business
How the
model?
business generates revenue, how the business spends its cost. That's all there is.
That's all, right? Then
Yes.
actually you can't run too far from the 7 key ways of doing.
Oh, one more is also how the business gets value. So simple example.
Provides value, you mean?
How the business provides value, right? So in this case, oh no, sorry, not provide, how the business gets value.
Increases its own valuation.
In the case of Facebook, the business value is users. In the case of revenue, is advertisers. In the case of cost, is just the operating cost of the
Well, what
business.
about an interesting model where a lot of people who are not in the tech scene are able to do things by scaling it? For example, starting chart for example.
Yes.
That's what we call the franchise business model, right? Because fundamentally, this whoever started it just put in a framework onto how to do things, and then they can sell this framework all over the world, framework the suppliers, and then they don't really do marketing. All they do is invest in the storefront, have the recipe to making those stuff, follow their designs, their architecture.
So Chatime is what you call a product business, right?
Yes.
Product business model. They have a product, they sell the product, and yeah, they have franchise system, but ultimately it's still a product business, right? Facebook is, well, it's a product business, but the products, like people always say, is the users.
So if you look at business models in the grand scheme of things, you can't run away from the main 7, 6. It's not infinite. It always boils down to the few, recurring revenue model, product, service, B2B, B2C. For example, Facebook having a free user, giving users for free and then monetizing through ads.
Yeah.
Marketplace, business models.
Yeah, no, so I think the way to innovate, to think about business models always is say, okay, how can I hack the system, right? So I think people always talking a lot about free.
So what you're saying is
Free.
leveraging the few key business models and finding your specific angle and within that. Is that correct?
Yeah, let's talk about an example just to also clarify it, right? Let's say open source. Open source software is basically someone spending a lot of money and time building a software and giving it for free. Why? How does that work? You see? Now I ask you now, okay, tell me how does it work? I mean, if you say you got it right.
It's not my perspective, right? Probably
Open source means you build something and you give it for free. Why?
You want the community to maintain the project for you together with you, because you yourself you can't bring it too far. You want to open source it so everyone get access to your source codes and people can use it, spot bugs, and then help you fix it together with you.
So that's on your cost. Okay, you save a bit on cost. Sure. How about the segment of value and revenue then?
When you use an open source project, you have to host it yourself.
Okay.
And maybe they get revenue from that when people use hosting providers to host
So
their open source code.
the value of open source is that the more people use it, the more stable a system gets, the more popular it gets, the more buy-in it gets, right?
The more buy-in what?
The more buy-in in companies. So people use the product. Wow, this is so great. Let me propose this to my boss. So what you call it, the value is called the lock-in value.
But the boss can use it for free, right?
Yes. The thing is this. The value is called lock-in value. If I just invented a term on the fly actually. Lock-in value means when everyone's using a product for free,
Yep.
your company has value because you have the lock-in of everybody who's you linked to your system. You lock them
Your
in.
system is open source.
Open source, but fundamentally the company that maintains system understands the whole system is the best one to do it, right? Because no one else is doing this for free as well. Everyone's doing this as committing small side thing. But the main company that first did it. So open source encourages people to use your system more, to contribute to it, whatever, you lock them in. And then where they add revenue is where they sell to only a small segment of their lock-in customers. Selling to the high-value enterprises, right?
Okay.
High-value enterprise use cases, or giving extra value added stuff to most of the smaller tier customers, right?
Okay.
So, but the key thing here is lock in.
Yep.
Once you lock someone in, they are truly part of the system, then there's value. If they can just switch around, then less lock-in value, right?
Okay. Yeah. Lock-in value basically. Yeah. I got your point. I agree.
So that's one way we can give something for free. And okay, let's just talk about our use cases, lah. Okay, let's just
So
ask.
talk about our business model, right? I wouldn't say for me I'm still on the camp where I believe business models are limited. It's how you play around with it.
Okay, that's right. So let's chat about it. Let's say
Also-
Hacker Collective. What's the way to hack it, right?
Okay.
Where do we get our value? Where do we get our revenue from? Right now,
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead first.
So if you're talking education, right? So for
Education,
what we do
generally,
is we do education. We found a sweet spot in the market where people are struggling to learn online, and people often don't need to go to boot camps full time and dedicate every day there. Get stuck in traffic, go to a boot camp just to end up learning on their own, anyways. Right? So we found a sweet spot where we can reduce the price, and we innovated a little bit on the business model where we got our senior students to teach our junior students.
You innovated on the cost. Yeah, so that on that part is the cost part, right? Yeah.
Innovated on the cost, right? So we didn't need to hire expensive software engineers. Software engineers today are very expensive.
Yeah, of
We
course.
didn't need to hire those expensive people. We train them up, and then we train them up by having our senior students train junior students, and also leveraging with the videos that we've done in the past.
Yeah.
So it's like a hybrid between boot camps and online videos, with an infinite amount of online videos getting launched every single day today. So many boot camps getting launched every single day today. We decided to find this little blue ocean where we feel like it's less competitive. Whoever who needs something in between, right? Which I can argue a lot of people need something in between, because learning yourself is very, very difficult. They have to come to us. They have nowhere else to go. Right? So we captured that part of the value chain. So that's how we innovated on the cost side of things. Now, we innovated a little bit as well on the venture side of things, on the revenue side of things, where our students have to learn based on, they're not just teaching other people, they have to learn through projects as well. They directly get involved with us on our projects, and where do we get these projects from? We got it from our own ventures. We are, in a way, we're a venture builder. We build startups. We have a ton of startups coming in. Most of these startups, almost all of them, will require tech. Now, who's going to do the tech for this model? Right? So students, they can learn all day, right? They can learn building toy projects, like building Tinder app for dogs, like doing some funky calendar system here and there. They can build this all day if they wanted to, but nothing beats the experience of building something in an actual software team, with the tech lead, with the product teams, with the business side of things. Nothing beats the experience of actually working on real products. So what we do is we promise our students this type of learning environment where we innovated on the revenue side. They see it, they want to get an for the students in their mind, they're thinking, whoa, after graduating this, I will have this in my CV. Even computer science students don't have real world this kind of projects where they work with other people. Maybe you can say that the internships give them that, but our students will have these projects under their portfolio that then they can use to pitch for future projects or future jobs. And that's how we kind of innovated a little bit on our revenue side as well.
Yes. So revenue is fundamentally you get revenue from a student buying a course, but you get a lot more revenue from a company engaging you in a project, right? And then because your cost is low, you make a big profit on the project.
A little bit about how we match our students as well to foreign companies or other companies. That's one side of the
So ultimately it's really you have a source of value, which is students, people, right? Actually depends. Hacker Collective as a company or as a course, the value is our community, our framework of how people self-learn. So that's our value, right? Our materials, that's the value, right? The students themselves are values. Let's have Facebook. What's the value of Facebook? It's the users themselves. Right? People said that users are productizing their users, making their users like a product. We are in a way making our students like a product if we outsource them to other companies. So I think we're having a bunch of assets. It's just how do we monetize the assets and how do you generate revenue from those assets, right? So I think that's definitely an interesting space to look at. I think just so if we can summarize business model in a nutshell, right? The framework I was talking about, value, revenue, cost. Now the business model canvas actually has a bit more, right? What are some of those segments?
Value proposition, customer segments, distribution channels, competitors, revenue, your cost. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, because the business model can be innovated through all those areas, right? Like distribution channel and all that, right?
Distribution channels. How do people see you? How do they get to know you?
What would feel others? Value proposition. Okay, value proposition.
Yep.
What was the other one?
There was one.
Distribution channels, value proposition, competitors.
Yep.
It's not really a business model.
Maybe you can have a look.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'll check out later.
Obviously, there's revenue and there's cost.
Revenue and there's cost, right?
Key partners. I think that's actually got key partners as well, right?
How you innovate on key partners, right?
Who's going to be working with you?
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
pretty much all of that. There's probably one or two more I forgot.
So business model is everything that the business needs to do, or the key segments of the business, and then is how those parts interplay together.
Yes, and you could argue that if a business don't have their business model sorted out, they are not going anywhere far. I mean, they could be making money.
Yeah.
Like we did, right? Back in the days, we didn't even do any all these kind of things.
Yeah.
But then we realized as we grew, as we proceeded, we had to sit down and really think of what are our angles of it in the
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.